I thought we were going to come in here today and just sort of go down memory lane and laugh, and we will eventually, but then NBA never ever takes a day off. So much happening over the weekend. And we get started with the Bradley Beal trade. It seemed to be so quick, Shams. Tell us how it went down.
So last week when Bradley Beal and the Wizards began working on finding him a trade, because the Wizards clearly moving toward a rebuild, they started working together on finding him a home. The Phoenix Suns aggressively went after Bradley Beal. I'm told from James Jones to Frank Vogel, their new head coach, to Matt Ishbia, to Josh Bartelstein, their CEO and owner. And then you have from even players. I'm told even Kevin Durant, Devin Booker recruited Bradley Beal. And there were conversations with both Beal, his wife Kamaya. And at the end of the day, the Phoenix Suns end up getting Bradley Beal, a 3-time All-Star, for a handful of second-round picks, a couple of draft swaps. They trade away Chris Paul, as well as Landry, Shamet, who did not have a future long-term with that organization. From a talent perspective, it's a no-brainer. I think the only way this deal happens is because Bradley Beal has a no-trade clause. That's literally the only reason he wound up in Phoenix. So Miami, Milwaukee, Sacramento, there were other teams even besides those, I'm told, that made bids, made offers. And Washington, I'm told, had better offers on the table. But at the end of the day, Bradley Beal got to pick his choice, pick where he wanted to go. And now you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Brad Beal, DeAndre Ayton. They have $160 million committed into those 4 players. It's going to make roster building difficult. You're going to really be limited just to minimum players. But this team is all in on a championship, clearly. And that goes from Matt Ishbia, James Jones, to Frank Vogel. Above all else, this team is all in for this next season to win a championship at any cost, clearly.
Yeah, there were a lot of jokes over the weekend of maybe we all get a shot to play coming off the bench for Phoenix. But look, as far as the trade itself, Chandler, who are you giving the better grade to?
Let's really think about this trade for 1 second. And I understand the no trade clause was a huge deal breaker here, and they wanted him off the books, and they're going into reset and tank mode. But you mean to tell me this is the best you can get for Brad Beal when Rudy Gobert just got 5 first-round picks? Paul George got 7 with some swap picks. Chris Paul, I think, got 2 first-round picks in 2019 with some swaps. And this is what you get? You send him to Phoenix for basically dead weight and a few second-round picks. It's a brutal trade for me, and I understand this is hard with the no trade clause, and Brad had a lot to do with this, and obviously he wanted to pick, but you don't want to send him to Miami for Lowry and Duncan Robinson and actual picks that you're going and players you're going to use. There's no way Chris Paul is going to go to the Washington Wizards and play. Landry Shamet is the kicker on this trade. Like, it really doesn't make sense to me. And I understand that they're tanking, and I understand the reset, and this guy's trying to build this team like Sam Presti is in Oklahoma City. But I think the real winner here is Josh Bartelstein, which, who don't know, is the CEO of the Phoenix Suns, who's the son of Mark Bartelstein, who runs Priority Sports, who's Brad Beal's agent. What a father on Father's Day that this guy just did for his son, because this could arguably be the worst trade I've ever seen, going from the Washington Wizards side. But listen, good for Brad Beal. If I'm him, I would have rather went to Miami, but
yeah.
You load up with those 2 guys and Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. They obviously need to get a bench here, but it's a great start, and I'd take that trio over any other trio, but they won this trade, and it's not even close. I don't know what the Wizards are doing.
That is the thing, Eddie, as Shams mentioned it, that Miami was on the board, Milwaukee was on the board, Kings were on the board. Bradley Beal going to Phoenix, what would have been the better choice? Are you good with him going there?
I'm obviously picking Phoenix. I mean, to be serious,
honest,
out of all of the situations, I think Miami is right there. Milwaukee is very interesting, but this is a lifestyle choice. He had a no trade clause. He got to pick the city. They're all great opportunities. Sacramento would have been a great opportunity, depending on the package they give up. But he's closer to home for his wife and their children. It's not all the ruckus you get with Miami. He picked Phoenix. He picked a great basketball situation as well. And again, shout out to the Bartelsteins, and I'm sure that made communication easier for them, but this was all about the no trade clause to me. He controlled everything there. I'm sure the Wizards wanted more first-round picks, or first-round picks at all. I'm sure the Wizards wanted more assets they could play today. I'm sure the Wizards wanted a much better trade. But the fact that they gave him a no trade clause a year ago when they put him into this contract, they did not have to do. He was eligible for it. He's the only player with a true no trade clause in the NBA. He created this entire situation for them. This is a player who many people around the league were waiting for them to trade for the last 3 years. It was when he was expiring, when he was coming up on a supermax, when it was time to sign the supermax. Everybody was assuming they would trade him. They would get him out of town. They would move on from that situation. Everybody knew they were not going to pay him $60 million in 4 years, and they still did it. They did it all anyway, and they gave him no trade clause, and this is what the result of all that. And this is their prize. You play silly games, you get silly prizes. But as far as the fit, I think he's a great fit in Phoenix. I think, look, obviously, like Sean's mentioned, they have a ton of roster spots they need to fill. I think they have 5 contracted players as of right now, and some free agent holds and the rest of that, but they have to fill an entire roster with essentially nothing to do. And the second tax apron, nobody knows if it's this year, next year, whatever. Either way, they're up against it. They can only spend so much money. Very curious to see what they do going forward. Everybody's wondering if they're going to trade Ayton and turn him into 2 useful players, or ideally 3. They're strapped. But you get those 3 players who can create the baskets they can create. And this is the team that got the closest to the Nuggets. There's no banner for that. They don't have a parade for that. But they won 2 games versus the Nuggets, down 2 starters. There's something there with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. And now you add Bradley Beal, who can also handle the ball, who can also make for that team. They have a great foundation. Yes, they have to fill the rest of the roster, but this is not a bad situation at all for Brad. I think he picked the best option of the 4.
That is some good agenting, by the way, to have all of that in that contract and be the only guy that had it. Is Papa Bartelstein doing a good job. Look, when they added Kevin Durant, the odds for the Phoenix Suns last year went up really, really quickly. Now they've added Bradley Beal. Are they title favorites, Chandler?
Well, it depends what they do with that bench that the guys just hit on, right? Like they have we're saying they have the best starting 5. We don't even know who that 5th starter is. Is it a Kogi? Is it Campaign? Do they find a way to get CP3 back there and take less and take a buyout or get waived or whatever that situation is going to look like? But yeah, you immediately become the best trio in the NBA. And basketball-wise, I can't think of a better fit between these 3 guys that can all create, all knock shots down. When you hear Devin Booker talking about last year, he's never had this many open looks when KD got there. Well, he's going to get even more now because now you have another creator, another shot maker. Brad Beal can really stretch the floor here, and he's a guy that we haven't talked about a lot because he's in Washington, just not getting any love there. This kid is a hooper. He can create. He's strong. He's one of the better shooters in the NBA. They're going to present a lot of challenges to defenses this coming season, but this is where I'm assuming they're hoping to get some veteran guys that are going to take less money and kind of make that bench what it's going to become, because you see this year, you need to have a strong bench. You at least need to go 7-8 deep to give these starters a rest, and you got to factor in injuries and you got to factor in foul trouble. And right now they have 0 bench. So it's going to be interesting, but yes, this makes them a contender. This makes them the best offensive team in the NBA. This makes them the best duo, the best trio, however you want to look at it. They are right there to compete, but they're going to have to really, level out their roster.
Shams, that's the question. They have no money seemingly left for a bench and a lot of questions at point guard. Do you have answers to any of that?
Well, we can start at point guard. I think right now you look at this roster, Devin Booker, you would assume is going to play a much bigger role at point guard. I don't know if he's going to be the starting point guard, but definitely being a ball handler, main ball handler. But really him, Brad Beal, Kevin Durant, they can all ball handle, initiate the offense, get other teammates involved. They can make other players around them better. So I think they all have the capability to do it. I would look at Devin Booker, though, as the guy that can actually do it full time, potentially at that point guard position. But I think even bigger than that, right now they have DeAndre Ayton on the roster, and I think there's a pathway for him to move forward and be that 4th option for them, be the starting center for them. But I'm told the Suns, even in the aftermath of this trade, they've been getting calls on DeAndre Ayton, and I think that is a market. We'll see how that develops. But right now he's there, and I think this trade did at least give them flexibility. You keep him, or you could move as well if the right opportunity, the right fit, you get multiple players could come back. But I'm curious, going back to Chandler, like you've played on a few star-studded teams. This trio, can you, how, there's only one basketball. How are these 3 guys that have been ball dominant, have been scorers, how do they make it work?
Well, I think Brad Beal is the perfect guy for that, right? Because he is an unselfish player. He wants to win now at this point. He's been losing for his entire career in Washington. He's never had another co-star, let alone two co-stars like this, where he's literally the third option. You go from the first option to the third option. That's going to be difficult at times, but knowing him, I know him very well, and I know his family. Obviously he's a Gator. This guy, he's ready to win. That's all he hasn't really done in his career, and I think he's a perfect fit. I think when you have Kevin Durant going ISO, and you have Brad Beal in the other corner, and Devin Booker in the other corner, there's no just magic philosophy on how to stop this. And what I like about these three guys, they all try to defend, and they all have potential to defend. So it's not like we're just talking about this offensive juggernaut. These guys can have the potential to be very, very good defensively too. So listen, I think it's great for him. I think Bartelstein had a lot to do with this, and there could have been a couple other situations that were just as good. But you go now, we're talking about being a contender. So we'll see what happens, but the bench is going to be huge. I'd love to see Chris Paul come back here. I think he would be super valuable at this stage of his career. What he brings to the table is exactly what they need: a floor general, a facilitator. There's a way to make that happen. I would do that in a flash if I was Ispia, but yeah, you're looking at the best trio going into next season, and it's not even close.
There are so many opinions floating around right now about CP3. They were before this trade. They are now after this trade. What happens to CP3, Shams?
For now, the Wizards are going to try to see if they can flip him to a third team. And I think a couple teams to keep an eye on: the Clippers, the Warriors. Those are two teams that did discuss potential deals with the Suns prior to this trade going down. And there was also another construct, from what I was told, where John Collins would have ended up in Phoenix. Chris Paul could have ended up on a third team like San Antonio or Houston, from what I was hearing. But the bottom line is, I think this trade was a win for Chris Paul. $30 million guaranteed for next year. Rather get that money guaranteed than being waived outright, which would have only guaranteed him $15 million. So he walks away from this season, from next year's salary, with at least $30.8 million. And now Wizards are going to see it. Can we go get a second-round pick from somewhere? Could we get an asset? Could we maybe get a young player that we like? So I would expect that process to continue over the course of this week.
Hey, Eddie. CP3, best fit anywhere. Where are you putting him?
I think the Clippers are the best fit for him. And a reunion there, if he's open for it, and that's a team that's obviously been mentioned, is great for him. I think that's where she'd be. All the contenders could benefit from having Chris Paul either starting for them or coming off their bench. I think the Heat are very interesting, and they have other things going on right now to figure out. But I also think the Warriors are very interesting. And then everybody wants to hear the one team that he didn't go to in 2012, and now 11 years later, maybe course corrects, the Lakers. I also think would be a great fit. Chris Paul can shoot. He can run an offense. He can defend point guards when need be. And he's a floor general. He gets your offense going. He's still a good player. Was he a $30 million player? I don't know. But if you're getting him on the vet min because he got bought out, that's different. What I am wondering, though, if you're the Clippers, don't you just play chicken just a little bit and dare the Wizards to keep him going into the season or cut him going forward? Why give up $30 million in salary to match that trade and bring him back when you can wait and maybe get him for the vet min and slot him right into your team? If I'm one of those other teams, I'm waiting to see what happens with that.
Ooh, that's not bad. I like that. Chandler's nodding. I like that. That is some cutthroat agenting going on right there, Eddie. Well done. Or GMing, I guess.